Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I do hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's second half, shall we? All right, folks. So tonight's second half is an interview with a subscriber who is in or at every live stream. He is in every chat of that live stream. So if you ever have any questions for him after listening to this upload, his name is Robert Sharp, and he will answer your questions if you are in the live, and find him in the comment section or chat section, excuse me. Very interesting set of experiences this man had at a very young age, and a very kind of different outlook on what Dogman is and what they can do. Let's jump into it. All right, everybody. Tonight I have a guest with us. His name is Robert, and Robert has had a very interesting experience with a Dogman and multiple encounters with multiple cryptids. Robert, how are you today?
I'm doing just fine.
I appreciate you reaching out to me. I'm glad we were able to connect. I've heard your encounter. I've not heard your encounter. I've heard of your encounter, and I'm looking forward to hearing pretty much your whole history of your experiences with Dogmen and the other cryptids. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you and let you share from there.
Okay, thank you. Well, my experiences with Dogman went from 1985, well, the best years, 1985 to the year 2000. I raised a Dogman. But before all that, I had a horrible fear of Dogman because of the experience I had in 1984. I had just gotten home from work from an inventory company that I had worked with for 14 years. I had that week off, and this was on a Friday night. About 11 o'clock at night, I was in my recliner. Now, we have a huge bay window in the kitchen. My house was built on the side of a hill. This is my dad and my grandfather's house. It's a 5-bedroom, 2-bath house. Very beautiful. Now, the kitchen and bedroom sits on top of the garage. It sits 15 foot off the ground, with a wall connecting to the outside garage / kitchen wall. There's another brick wall that's 15 foot long and 10 foot high where we stack wood. Now, in the backyard, which is a 4-acre backyard, directly in the back of the house, there was this dog pen for 10 hunting dogs, rabbit dogs. 11 o'clock at night, the woods around the house was very, very dead still. You couldn't hear anything. This is during the fall. The spotlights first came on, and I heard my dogs crying, screaming. I went to the kitchen window. There was this huge bear-like creature. It was huge and wide, with orangish red hair all over it. It had broken down one side of the fence, and it had killed 8 of the dogs, and it's holding one of the dogs in its right arm. Had it tucked under its right arm, and it was dead. And it was going after my main male hunting dog. I immediately grabbed my Mini 14, slapped in a 20-round clip, and I opened fired through that open window in the kitchen. I hit it twice in the shoulder, and it flipped it around. Now, the ammunition I was using for that Mini 14 was the ammunition my dad gave me. It was armor piercing. Well, it literally blew half its shoulder and arm off, and it flipped around and looked at me. Well, like a damn fool, I ran out there after it, and I chased after it, firing as I went. Well, my hunting dog ran off after me, and he was standing between me and it, barking at it. Well, since we were in the middle of a drought, when I got to the creek, I slid down in the creek. It was still muddy, but it was practically dried up. This thing had already dropped my dead dog, but my male dog, he was badly wounded, but he was going to stay there between me and it. When I fell down in this creek and I got back up, the thing got up from out of the weeds and stood up. When it stood up, I opened fired a fully 20 clip around it. I stitched it from its groin all the way up to its neck. Well, it flopped over. And about that time, my dad got to me, my grandfather got to me, and the sheriff and 2 deputies got to me. They got us back at the house, and they had opened up the garage doors. They got my stepmom, my sister, and my girlfriend, told them to stay in that basement on the back side of the wall. And they slammed the door shut, and we stayed in that basement all night long until the next morning. Next morning, after we got up from sleeping on that cold garage floor, we walked back there to where I had shot this thing, this hybrid Dogman. It wasn't there, but something had dragged it down the creek line, I guess all the way to the river, but we didn't go that far, and we quickly left. And the sheriff, who was our cousin, he says, "I'm not making a report on this, guys. We're just going to keep it shut." And we said, "Okay." That gave me nightmares. Still does today. Then, in 1985, my dad and his best friend were coming home on base, and they had something in a knapsack, and said, "Hey, we're going to surprise Robert with this to get him out of his depression, because all of my hunting dogs died. And so they drove up in the afternoon, parked the Jeep, and came inside all smiling and stuff. Well, I was sleeping at the time, and they called me in. Me and my girlfriend, we walked in there in the kitchen. There's this knapsack on the kitchen. I noticed it moving, and I reached in, then what I call a knapsack, and it was squirming, and out pops this ugly little pup. That was the strangest thing I've ever seen in my whole entire life. He had kind of wolf ears. He had big wolf ears. The ugliest face. It was a wolf's face, but it was ugly at the same time too, and cute to me. His skin was like a light charcoal gray and soft. His arms in what I would call paw hands, kind of like raccoon hands, that stretched all the way down to his little knees. And the back of his legs were like huge dog hocks, or dog legs. His knuckles were kind of large, and when he flexed his knuckles, he couldn't see at the time. He's only 3 days old, very, very bad sick. When he flexed his fingers, I noticed claws, at the time, real thin claws, and they were retractable like a cat's. I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And since my sister and my girlfriend worked at the veterinarian's office, they started pumping him full of antibiotics. I started giving him a little bit of water that he could handle. And I wanted right then and there on the spot, everyone, this is where I fell in love with Dogman. So we started giving him antibiotics and water. For the first 2 weeks, we was giving him baby food, actually baby formula. And he took to that real quick. Because I think what helped was the antibiotics too. And Dad and Grandpa brought Rascal home to me because they were ordered to process his mother and the other 3 pups, which they did, but they kept Rascal because they didn't expect him to live. They really didn't, but they wanted to show me what a Dogman was. And here's what we did. In the 3rd week, we were giving Rascal, and I named him Rascal, because he looked like a rascal to me. Then we started giving him baby food on the 3rd and 4th week. 5th and 6th week, he was eating regular food. And when he finally opened up his eyes, they were the prettiest cobalt blue I've ever seen. And the first thing he did was reach up to me. Well, and I picked him up and I hugged him, and he hugged me back and licked me. And he did the same thing with my girlfriend. And then he was doing the same thing with Dad, Grandpa, my stepmom, and my sister. And it's like this, it hit off. And next thing I want to let in is his relationship to everybody. His relationship with Amanda, girlfriend, my sister, and my stepmom. He would always lay there on the couch with him, where they would groom him, rub his ears, and they would pet him. And then in the early mornings, when they would go jogging, he would jog with them down the road that went through our property, which is a 500 acre property that stretches all the way down and borders the LBL. And as they would jog, he would jog with them. That was his thing, jogging with them and being on a couch with them. My dad, his relationship with my dad, he was always out in the backyard doing housework, and he'd be with my dad doing housework with him. Plus, he would another thing with my dad, he would always watch TV or be gardening in the garden, and Rascal would be with him. My grandpa, it was a little bit different. After dinner and everything, Rascal would lay there with him, and Grandpa always loved manicuring his claws and brushing his teeth. And plus, since my grandfather was a commercial fisherman, Rascal would help him with the hoop nets, because Rascal would hold up the hoops as my grandfather would thread the net through the hoops for catfishing. Now, his relationship with me, it was a whole lot deeper. And since he was with me the most, because he would be hunting with me and camping with me, me and him we spent the most time together. Rascal's diet consisted of, for the most part, cooked meat, cooked vegetables, raw vegetables, and fruit. It's like this. Dogman is not just a meat eater, he's an omnivore, because they eat fruits and vegetables too. Now, peppermint is a specialty to Dogman because it acts like catnip it is to cats. And Rascal's eyes was cross between canine. I'm going to say cross between canine and human, because number one, he could see color. And he's like all dogmen, he is highly intelligent because he can understand our speech. And my grandfather was sitting at the table one time where we were all sitting, and he was watching Rascal's eyes. And he told us, Dogman will always be different from Bigfoot because, number one, when you see a dogman's eyes and stuff, he says you can notice the life in their eyes, which means they have a soul. He says he don't know if Bigfoot has a soul or not. He says if it does, it's a very, very black, evil one. So one day we're sitting at the table talking. My grandfather says, "You do know Rascals understands us, don't you?" I kind of looked at him and said, "Okay." I turned and looked at Rascal. I said, "Come here, boy." He comes over to me, stands by the table, since I'm sitting down drinking my coffee. I said, "Rascal, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want you to point." I said, "Rascal, where's stepmom, sis, and my girlfriend?" He turns to where they're sitting at the living room couch, in the living room, sitting on the couch. So he turns around, points straight at them. Well, they're looking like their jaws, like they're listening, and their jaws just drop. I said, "Okay, Rascal, Where's Dad? Well, he's sitting at the opposite table of me. He turns around, looks at Dad, and points. My grandfather, now, he pointed. This time, he's over here smiling. And I said, Rascal, where's Grandpa? He turns at the front of the table, and he points straight at Grandpa. I said, boy, you do know. You do understand our speech. So that's where everything just changed for me, and is for the better. Now, as he was younger, he had 2 sets of teeth. 2 sets on top and 2 sets on the bottom of his mouth. Now, the first set were for tearing and, eating meat and all that. But the second set was a whole lot softer. Kind of like, because it was like for holding the food. Now, as he grew older, these 2 sets grew into 1 set. Now, his eyes, they're based on an emotional type part deal. Now, his eyes are usually a golden yellowish brown. Very beautiful. Now, but they will turn red or amber when he gets mad on, or when he's protecting anyone in the family, especially me. His fur was soft and thick, and his in his paw, or I call raccoon hands, were thick and muscular. His fingers were, and very long. Now his neck, and now his knuckles are kind of large and stuff. That was because he can tract and retract his claws like a cat. Now his mane went all the way down from his top of his head all the way down his back to his tail, his huge wolf-like tail, which is thick and bushy. And the other part of his mane went around his shoulders all the way down the front of his chest. He was like muscular, kind of like a football player or a person that works out on weights, but his body lower got tapered until you get to his hips that were double jointed. Now, when people say they hear a dogman's hips pop when they stand up, their hips don't pop. That's their feet setting. And later on is when, here's the thing, my dad and grandfather gave Rascal, believe it or not, military training. My grandfather was aboard an aircraft carrier, air ops aboard an escort carrier in World War II. And he was badly wounded in Okinawa. And he was highly decorated for that. My father served 2 terms in Nam, and he was highly decorated for his. When my grandfather finally retired from the Naval Reserves, he held the status of Rear Admiral. My father, when he finally got out of the reserves, he held the rank of captain. His best friend held the rank of brigadier, which was even higher than Dad. In fact, he was Dad's commanding officer. And for my father, I don't know how he brought Rascal home, but he did. I don't know how they snuck, but they did. They snuck him off base. So, and first 2 months of Rascal's life was getting to know us. Now, in the third month, this is where his training started. Dad and Grandpa always had this football. Rascal loved to play with the football. And here's what they do. They get on one end of that. This is where his speed training started. They worked on his burst takeoff training, his takeoff speed training first by throwing that football, letting him run after it, jump high in the air, catch it in the air, and bring it back to him. They did this week upon week. Now, like I said, we had this gravel road that went down through our property line, our property, dead square through our property. And there's a stop sign on the end of it that connected up to the highway. And here's what I would do with my truck. It was specially made, especially in the back of the cab, where Rascal could slide in through the window. I would race Rascal, bipedal it first. Race him from end to end on that road. I would get up to speeds up to 50 to 60 miles an hour and found out Rascal could keep up with me at that speed bipedal. And just before I'd stop at that stop sign, I would have him jump in the back of the truck and slide in through the back window, sit there in the passenger side seat beside me. I would stop at the stop sign, turn around, and I would head back, and I would do this several times in the week with Rascal until when he got on all fours, I couldn't even match his speed, because he'd be, even before I get halfway down that road, he'd be standing there beside that stop sign waiting for me. And I would think, good Lord, he's doing greater than 60 miles an hour, because I could only guess maybe 75, maybe 80 miles an hour, because he was just a blur. I couldn't even see him. I could see the trail where he would leave, but that would be it. I couldn't see him until I met him at that stop sign. He got in, and I knew his speed training was complete. Next was strength training. This, my grandfather, me, and Dad would get him to climb up these trees as fast as he could. We noticed when he climbed up the trees with his claws, he was building up his strength. Plus, on top of that, Grandpa and Dad would get him to pick up these huge boulders. I mean, these are boulders we couldn't even pick up all three together, and we would get him to more or less bench squat the things, standing up and just picking them up to his chest and over his head, and then have him set it down again, which he would. We would do this several times with him. And plus, his strength training also dealt with swimming, because he could swim underwater for about 15 minutes, which is more than us. And me and Rascal would swim several times together, which would build up his endurance and his strength. And once we knew his strength training was always like we couldn't measure his strength anymore. He was that strong. The next part of his training was gun training. This started, believe it or not, a little bit before his strength and little bit before his strength training and his speed training. Because every other Saturday, I'd be target shooting in the back 40. My grandfather would be watching Rascal's eyes, and he says, "Buddy, why don't you go out there and see what he's doing?" So Grandpa let him out, and boy, Rascal hustled his way over to me, and he was watching me shoot these targets with my Mini 14 and with Dad's AK-47 folding stock. He was watching me, and when I'd shoot down one of those targets, he'd run over and get it, bring it to me. And I'd shoot the next target, he would do the same thing. And I'm going, okay, so he's not gunshot, he's ready to go. Then, after that, after all his training was pretty much done with, I would take Rascal out to know all of our 400, 500 acre spread, homestead. I said, Rascal, this is your home too. And he would do a mark on every other tree. This is about either at the base of the tree or about 5 foot on the tree where he'd make his claw mark. Now, when Rascal came into our lives, my grandfather was always in a horrible depression like me. But like me, when Rascal came into our lives and he knew Rascal was going to live, it's like my grandfather came to life. He says, I'm going to do something special for Rascal when the time comes. And when Rascal was 6 months to a year old, my grandfather went down to the shop and he made these 10-inch razors and sort of like a dress glove. These razors were foldable razors. It's like, and he fitted them on Rascal's hands, these metal razors, because they were razor sharp, pure aluminum. And Grandpa trained Rascal how to use those razors, because after Rascal's claws retracted back into his hands, the funny thing about these razors, they would separate and fold over his knuckles like brass knuckles, with small ended blades sticking out of every knuckle to give him a greater punching power. And he fitted those razors on him for defense and for hunting and fishing. But I suspected it was for something else too. Now, in 1989 was the first incident with Rascal. I just gotten home from work, and I had a very, very severe migraine headache. Now, this happened in kind of like the late fall, what we call the Indian summer, but it was hot in our our central heating and air unit went out. So at the bay window, we we took glass out and everything else, and we opened up the curtains and let the air in because it was so hot in the house. But that night, the girls were cooking supper and everything, Dad and Grandpa, after they had finished cleaning their guns and stuff, because they was getting ready for a deer season. They were sitting on the table. Me, I was laying on the couch, fixing to go to sleep. When I first looked up at the couch, it's about 10:30, and I looked up and I saw this black 4-fingered hand come down at me. Well, I really didn't think nothing of it, so I just rolled over. Thought it was Rascal, playing a joke with me or just checking me out, seeing if I was all right, because Rascal was laying there in front of everybody in the kitchen. Lo and behold, I no sooner turned over than I heard this absolute huge loud roar, and all I saw was claws and fangs leap over the couch. That was Rascal. What happened was this type 3 baboon-faced Bigfoot was reaching through the open bay door window reaching for me. Rascal saw this and leaped over the couch. His fangs, his claws were out. And he leaped over the couch. And his back feet kicked the couch all the way against the wall with me in it. The girls ran under the kitchen table screaming. Dad and Grandpa grabbed their guns. What Rascal did, he grabbed this thing into a headlock, bit it on top of the head, because they were both fighting and just tearing that windowsill all to crap. And the fight didn't last no more than 2 or 3 minutes. For me, I thought it lasted forever, and it felt like it. Then I heard a scream. Then it went limp in Rascal's arms. Rascal let it go. What he did, he bit it on top of the head and killed it. Rascal let it go and went straight over to me, started whining, started licking my face. And I was just like in dumbfounded shock. And something pulled this dead Bigfoot out of the window. Because I could hear it, we could all hear it, whatever it was, or whatever they were, back through the woods. Dad and Grandpa had their guns ready, looking out the window. Rascal came up there in between them, and he was looking out the window, but he didn't go outside. So we closed the draped windows and boarded up the window as best we could, because it was torn all to crap. That next morning, we went out. We tracked where it was dragged, when it was dragged down to the creek, and we got almost as far as the river, but we didn't see nothing. We didn't find out where they went to and stuff. I can only imagine they dragged it back to the LBL and ate it. And that was the first cryptid incident. We went back to the house where we fixed the window, and we got a new central air unit that day. Nightmares. Bad nightmares. The next I'm going to say the next incident, I couldn't really call it an incident. It was because it happened so fast. This was when how can I say this? We were basically fishing, and what I saw, what I saw, I really can't describe, but it was pale, 4 foot tall. This thing looked like a walking salamander, black fish-like eyes, and like a fish fin all the way down its back.
So like a gill, or like a fin, like kind of like a
like a sunfish, kind of like a bass fin.
Okay.
And of course, the girls, they were sunbathing while me and Rascal were fishing. We got a couple of real good tubs of fish, and that was going to make a perfect fish fry. And so it was a perfect day, sunny out and everything else. Then I heard it sounded a hissing sound. And because I noticed Rascal was alert all day, but, we were still catching fish. There's no big thing. When I heard this hiss in the weeds that was sticking up out of the water, and the girls heard it too, they kind of looked up. And I looked, and that's where this thing jumped out at them and came directly at them. I was looking right at the girls. It wasn't looking at me at Rascal. It wasn't looking at the truck. It was concentrating on them. I'm like, before I could even shout or even grab my handgun, Rascal had already took action. He leaped right at it. And he used his claws. He didn't bite the thing. He used his claws and razors. Cut this thing in half. And it flopped down on the ground. And it was dead before it landed on the ground. The girls were scared half to death. They jumped up off their blankets and they dove inside that truck and locked both truck doors. Me, I was in the back of the truck with the tubs of fish. And I had my handgun out aiming at this thing that Rascal would take he threw the legs in lower half in the back in the river. And he was just beating this thing wham, wham, wham up against the ground. And my stepmom called Dad and Grandpa. They came down in their truck, and my grandfather's got Rascal away from that creature, but not before Rascal went down to the river. Rascal washed his mouth out, and he washed his hands and arms off. And my grandfather came over to us. He says, whatever you do, do not go near that thing. He says that thing's got a poison system in it that's highly toxic right along with its blood. I looked at the sand where the thing was laying, and that sand looked like it was melting. That's how toxic its blood and poison was. I took a stick, and this thing was dead. And Rascal had gutted it in half. This thing, when I opened up its mouth, its teeth were hollow. Like venom could come out of it. And I looked in the back of its throat, there was this huge black sack of nothing but poison in it. And my grandfather says, whatever you do, do not pop that sack. Well, I further examined this creature. Its skin was pale and slimy, with that dorsal fin in its back, growing out of its back. It had hollow type, four-fingered claw hands, I guess where poison could come out. And when I looked at its lungs, its heart, and everything else, was kind of like a fish, but there were poison sacs in the back of their organs. And these poison sacs had its own, what I would call blood vascular system, separate from its usual vascular system, but every other way, these blood veins would connect up to these poison veins. And this how this creature hunts, with like a snake. It kills its victim with poison. I mean, that was, ooh.
Yeah, now Rascal didn't, because you and I had talked, we'd talked a little bit prior to the interview. And it's a little different than a normal interview where I ask questions, but I wanted to kind of emphasize on this. Rascal didn't bite this creature.
No.
He knew
Yeah.
That it had.
He knew.
Yeah, like your grandfather knew.
Yeah.
And at the end, I think he threw it in the river or the stream or whatever you guys were fishing in.
Yeah, and he knew. It's like he knew just what these things would do.
Yeah.
This is the first time I ever saw a creature like that. That's what kind of scared me. Because
the way you and I were talking about this thing, it was very nasty looking.
You're not kidding. It was. This thing was unlike I've ever seen before.
Yeah, because when you were telling me, I was thinking two things: snake, or kind of like a Komodo dragon or Gila monster.
Yeah.
And then you said the sack, the poison sack in the back of its throat.
Yeah.
Which kind of threw me, you know?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what to make of this thing, but my grandfather did. It's like, and the sack that was in its back of its throat had these veins that went up to its teeth, to every tooth. And I'm thinking, oh God, that's a hell of a lot of poison.
Yeah.
And my grandfather told me, he says, now remember this. You see a strange sort of like snake hole, and you smell something dead, or you smell something real fishy, stay away from it. He says the same thing when you go out, when you and Rascal go out hunting, and you go near a beaver dam, and it's an abandoned old dam that's busted up and everything else, and you smell something dead, get completely away from it. Do not go near the water where it is. Do not go within 50 foot of it. Do not go there. So we didn't.
Yeah, that's creepy. I mean, just the way.
That's more than creepy. To me, that's scary.
And that's crazy because, like you had said to me, you know, Rascal had. This was what? I mean, you were with him for only a couple of years at this point, or?
I was with him a year.
And he's already had an encounter with a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And whatever the heck this thing is.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, almost like, and I didn't say this when we were talking earlier, but it's almost like your grandfather, like he fashioned those, the claws for him. It's almost like he knew what was going to happen prior.
Yeah, he did know. Because he said, here's what my grandfather said. He said, all of these cryptids, especially Bigfoot's going to come out, and they're going to see you with Rascal, and they're going to see Rascal with you. And they're going to be wondering, why is it Dogman staying with a human?
Yeah.
Because it's already bad enough. These Dogman and other cryptids are moving into our homestead, trying to take it over. I mean, this is... Ooh.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Yeah, that is very scary. Now, when it comes to camping, I loved it with Rascal. Because I used the camping most of the time at the first of the, at the time when, during the fall when it starts getting cold. Because I'll go back there. Me and Rascal's always have a favorite place for hunting and camping. That's where we have two huge ponds. The smaller one is about 40 foot deep and very huge and wide. The second pond is kind of like, I call it a baby lake because it's about 60, 70 foot deep. Then we got a huge, long creek that connects up to both these ponds. and then goes all the way down to the Cumberland River, and it's about 20 foot deep and about 40 foot wide. So that's a big, big creek.
Yeah.
And there's always these 2 or 3 oak trees, 2 small ones and 1 huge one. Me and Rascal like to stay in the huge one, because that we use that as our deer stand. So we can go, so we can do our deer hunting. Because on our 400 to 500 acre, we always had these 4 herds of deer, and they were 20 to 30 head each. Now, camping, I would always go like kind of the valley in front of the creek and ponds. Rascal would stay up there at the top of the hill and watch over me while I cut down a couple of trees with a chainsaw and everything, and I'd cut up firewood, put it in the truck, and then me and Rascal stay the night. Then in the morning, we'd have breakfast like bacon and our dried beef and vegetables, and then we would bury the bacon grease and everything in a hole, then cover it up. Then we'd clean the pot out and everything, and in the creek. Then we'd go home. But here's how we would set up our camp. I'd set up our 10-person tent, just me and Rascal, and this is a good-sized tent. I built a fireplace on either side of the tent, and then one fireplace, then one actually, not fire, but a campfire. That's what I meant. I'm sorry about the fireplace thing.
Yeah.
But a campfire on 3. It's a triangle, 3 campfires. I make 3 campfires, 1 on each side of our tent, and then 1 in front. And I do that as a protection, because I would lay in the I lay on our cot, on the camping cot in my sleeping bag, and Rascal would sleep with me in the sleeping thing. I call it sleeping as a sleeping bag. And when I go to sleep, Rascal put his arms around me, and I would always put my face in his mane, and I'd be dead asleep up against his chest. But and when Dogman sleep, here's the way Rascal would sleep. He'd always sleep with one eye open, but his ears were constantly turning, because I think he was always alert. Even when he was sleeping, he was always alert. Now, hunting, I can tell you people this: hunting with a Dogman is the greatest joy I've ever had in my life. He would get up there in a tree with me, and we would wait for the whole herd of deer to get their drink of water, and then when they started to leave, we'd always plan our hunts, me and Rascal would. We'd always hit the 1 or 2 that was in back of the herd, not so we wouldn't spook all the herd. We'd pick out 1 or 2, and sometimes I would get the deer with 1 shot behind the neck. Next time, a deer would try to run, and as he'd try to run, Rascal would drop out of the tree on top of its back and snap its neck. Then we would tie the deer up on one of the low limbs of the tree, and we would dress it out. We'd take the guts, and we would bury the guts. And we would skin the deer out and everything else. Then we'd dress it, and I'd have about 3 or 4 coolers, dry ice coolers. We'd put all the meat in the dry ice coolers, because we'd kill 3 or 4 deer out of every hunt, because we'd hunt every other weekend. So we wouldn't wipe out the herds. We'd go to more or less just to each herd. Pick out 2 or something, and then when we come home, we'd have plenty of meat. for the winter and stuff. Now, this next incident that happened right after, it was during the winter or fall, during this is a week before Thanksgiving in 1991 or 1990, one of those two times. Me and Rascal were going to get 5 or 6 deer, get ready for Thanksgiving, because we already had a ham and turkeys because the whole family was coming over. I'm like, okay, like cousins and uncle and aunts and all that. Okay. So me and Rascal got ready. So during the morning we'd already got 2 deer. Actually 3 deer. We processed 2 and put them in the coolers. We didn't process the other one, but we put it up in a tree and we skinned it out. Then we got another one and skinned it out too late in the afternoon. And this time my sister and my girlfriend said, this time don't bury the skins, stretch them out, let them dry out overnight. You all stay overnight and we'll make a real good blanket for you and Rascal for your hunts. I was, okay, good. So that afternoon, after we skinned up that second one and strung it up on the tree limb, which is a dumb thing we shouldn't have done, we went back out because we was planning on coming back at night with 2 more deer. That would make it 6 deer. Well, we started coming back. It was almost dusk. About 4:30. It wasn't quite dark yet. Rascal was ahead of me, and I was on my I was on Dad's 3-wheeler. I was coming back with 2 more deer. And when we got up over the hill, when Rascal got up over the hill, he was ahead of me. He growled and let out a warning bark. I'm like, oh God, something's in the camp. Because his hackles went up, his fur went up, his tail went rigid. So I stopped the 3-wheeler, and I started going around the hill. When Rascal went down the hill and I met him, I looked at our camp was literally destroyed. The 2 deer we had hanging up on the tree limb, the deer in the tree limb were gone. The skins we had stretched out were gone. And there were about 4 or 5 different footprints, and I recognized them for what they were, Bigfoot. They'd smashed out the fires. They didn't go near my truck at all. And my truck was right in front of that camp. Why I don't, I guess the dry ice hid the smell. But they never went near the truck at all. Okay. They never walked around it or nothing. They just went through that camp and destroyed it. They destroyed the tent and everything. I called Dad and Grandpa because I was tired and I knew Rascal was tired. But Rascal, he was in a rage. He was going to, he did about 2 or 3 defensive circles all the way around. And there was nothing there, and he came back. And he leaned up against me. He had I thought at first he had his arms crossed, but it wasn't. He had his arms down, but he was flexing his fingers and flexing his claws back and forth. His eyes were still red, and I was rubbing him on the back and neck. But that time, here comes Dad and Grandpa up. They had an extra tent and everything. And by this time, it was dark. We had our flashlights on and everything else. And Grandpa saw the other 2 things. He says, okay, guys, it's all 4 of us. It's all 3 of us, including Rascal, go out there and get 2 more deer, then let's get the heck out of here. Well, we did that. This time we threw the deer in back of the trucks, and we took off. When we got home, we cleaned the last 2 deer out, unpacked the other deer that me and Rascal had processed. Of course, when we came home, we didn't have 6 deer. We still had 4 deer, which upset me a little bit. And we had a real good Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving is always mine and Rascal's favorite. It was just that incident was just eerie.
Yeah.
Because while me and Rascal were hunting, see, we didn't hear nothing. And then when I saw that whips of white smoke come up from the center, I said, "Oh, did the fires go out?" I said, "They couldn't have." Of course, when we went down there, no, they were put out. And I'm going like, what in the freaking heck is this? Because even I was mad. And I was thinking in my mind, all this damn work we did, and those damn scavengers come through our doggone camp, tore it up, and took everything. Because we took what's left of that tent that was ripped to shreds, and it was ripped to shreds, everything. I mean, it was totally destroyed. Of course, we threw it away, then the guts off them last 2 deer. It wound up not being 4 deer, but 5. We took them guts down to the burning pile, and we burned them and all that. The skins, we went ahead and burned them too. I was just so mad. But at Thanksgiving, everything went on, it made things all right. But I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, even Rascal had a disgusted look on his face, and I can't blame him. And I can't blame him for being mad. I was mad too. I mean, it was horrifying.
Now, with you and I had talked, had been on a previous channel and shared you had a couple of uploads, 2 uploads, and you had felt like the amount of time that you had spent with Rascal, the amount of stuff you had to share, couldn't fit into X amount of time. You and I talked about doing kind of like a whenever you were free and I was free, we'd kind of plan in like about an hour and a half show. Yeah. That way you could really fill in the gaps, talk about
because it's hard for me to fit in 15 years with only 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah.
It really is, because there's so much.
We're coming up on about an hour now. Do you want to do about 20 more minutes of...
Yeah, sure.
We got about... we're what, about 2 years in with Rascal now?
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay. All right. Now, I got a couple, just if you don't mind, a couple questions to ask about, like, now when you said Rascal would sleep, he'd sleep with an eye open, and his ears would move. How did he sleep? Like, lying, like what? Did he lie on his back? Did he lie on his side?
Here's the way he would do it. Like, I'd be in my bedroom, he'd be sleeping with me, because he always slept with me. Here's how he would do it. I always slept on my sides, because I can't sleep on my stomach or my back, because of my diabetes.
Okay.
I'd sleep on my side, and Rascal would sleep on his side too, like I would. But here's how he would do it. He would lay his huge head across my shoulder and neck, and he'd have his arms tucked around me, holding me. And me, I would always turn around, and I'd bury my face into his a mane, and I would go straight to sleep. And he would always sleep with one eye open. This is the way dogs, he explained, this is the way dogmen do this. And they always turn their ears from ears to ear, around and round and round, because here's the thing. They can hear for miles. They can hear up to 45, 50 miles away.
Okay.
This is how acute their hearing is. This is why the ears turn and turn and turn. They can have a good night's sleep, but they'll hear everything. If something like came close to the house or anything, hey, he was up there looking at the window, going all through the house, but he's making sure he's quiet enough where he wouldn't disturb anybody sleeping, but he's checking them windows and checking them doors, making sure not anything's not coming near the house. If anything comes near the house, he would let us know.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot that you have said that really kind of, I don't know, I've heard different people say, like, here's something, and I don't know, I think you had just touched on his teeth, and how there were two sets, and as he got older, it kind of turned into one set.
Yeah. They grew into one set.
Yeah, now, we were talking a little bit about how the teeth were shaped, and you had said, it was like a dog, but it was like something else, and I had a guy who was out of Delaware. He lived in Delaware and had an encounter in Pennsylvania, and he had studied teeth in college, and I said, I told you what he said. It was almost like a dog, but like an alligator or shark's teeth, how they came and met together, like they kind of fit right together. Yeah. And you said, yeah, that's... And also another thing was interesting is when you and I started our conversation tonight, and you had said Rascal came home, and he was very ugly, but not to you, but, he was ugly. And I said, that's crazy because I had an opportunity to see a photo of a baby Dogman once, and I said to you and to the person who showed that it was the absolute ugliest thing I had ever seen in my entire life. There was just something about it that was just not, it just didn't make any sense, I think, to my brain. So it was pretty interesting that, things that I had experienced or know or heard, you really hit on tonight too, which is very cool.
Yeah. And for everyone's thoughts of what Rascal really looked like, all I can describe him as, if anyone's seen the movie Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman, that werewolf, that's exactly what Rascal looked like. Black and everything.
Okay.
That's exactly what he looked like.
Now, when he was a baby, what color was his hair when he first came home?
It was jet black.
All black, but it was spotchy, like you had said.
Yeah, it was spotchy.
Yeah. Now, how long did it take for that hair to fill in?
About 8 weeks.
Okay. Now, was he able... How was he? He was 3 days old, I believe you said?
Yep.
Okay. How was he able... Was he able to move, walk, or was he...
Actually, he wasn't moving much at all at 3 days old until a week.
Okay.
But he could flex his feet and everything. When I really got to look at his feet, his bone structure was thick, but his feet were kind of webbed.
Okay.
But kind of like a dog, too. So,
I'm sorry.
That was very, very interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, webbed, yeah. When was he able to, was he... Okay, so as he's growing, getting older, I'm imagining quadruped mobility would have been the first, and then bipedal.
Yeah.
How old was he when he actually walked bipedal?
He was about eighth, ninth week.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking either the third, fourth week, he opened up his eyes. He wasn't really crawling around much. You know, like a little puppy would crawl around, its eyes were still,
Yeah.
you know, not able to open. That's kind of like how he was. Then it took, from then, when he opened up his eyes, he really wasn't walking bipedal in about the 6th month.
Okay.
Because my grandfather says it usually takes these Dogman pups a year to year and 6 months for them to walk bipedal, because they're still, you know, I'm thinking his equilibrium isn't mature enough. Is what that's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Or their bone structure wasn't thick enough to where they can. And then when he did, and I hear a popping sound, I looked down at his feet, and his feet were making that popping sound. And he got up naturally, like bipedal, like we would, like getting up in the morning, and he would start walking. But he always held on to something. First of all, in the first couple of weeks that he was walking bipedal, then he was walking to everybody and wanting hugs and all that. And of course, we'd hug him. And girls, they do more hugging. They kiss him on the nose and all that. And of course, that's what my stepmom and my sister and my girlfriend would do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, this is interesting. It's very interesting to me that with that kind of aquatic creature, kind of crawler-like, whatever.
Yeah.
That he knew almost just like
it was bred into him or something.
Yeah, that it was bred
like that,
into him not to bite, not to avoid the blood.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah, because when my grandpa taught him how to use them claws, he taught him how to use them claws. So here's what he would do with his razor, what my grandfather called razor training. He was teaching Rascal his regular claws to cut down, like on a big piece of wood or something.
Okay.
Then when he got and that's how he got Rascals to really get his strength going. Then when he fit his paw hands with those razors, at first he'd have him punch that doggone piece of wood till his fist went dang near through it. Then Grandpa, when he'd get his claws out, he would have Rascal cut a pure piece of aluminum that was 2 inches thick. And Rascal would slice it down through, like slicing through butter. My grandfather and my father would teach him that.
That is very interesting. Wow. It's just it's funny that your grandfather knew exactly kind of like, and they didn't bring him home. They didn't bring him home to kind of have a pet, have a companion for you. Well, they did and they didn't, because they really didn't think he was going to survive.
Yeah.
But then you guys really got a kind of an extra family member.
Yeah, we did. And when Rascal could jump, he could jump up to 30, 40 foot flat-footed, bipedal, and a quadrupedal, both ways.
And he hunted. You said I did catch that right. You said he when you guys hunted, he was in a tree.
Yeah, with me.
Yeah. So would he just jump, like, let's say a small herd of deer go by? Would he jump down on them, or would he jump down and chase them?
Yeah, that's what he did. He would jump down on them, and
Like an ambush predator.
Instead of biting them
Yep.
and stuff. See, he's an ambush hunter.
Yeah.
See, this is what makes Dogman such more efficient hunters. They pick and choose their prey.
Okay.
And then they ambush them. It's like this. They're so much smarter hunters. That's what I saw with Rascal.
Yeah.
And it came natural to him. And hunting with him was an absolute blast. I loved it. We came home with more game than I knew what to do with.
Yeah, I can
and
imagine.
thank God we had 2 deep freezers. And people think Dogman eats a lot. Okay, when they first really, really growing, when they're juvenile and babies, yes, they do. But as they grow older, when Rascal's finally a young adult in his 4th year, his eating habits were kind of like more uniform. Because we also, my grandfather gave him a big spoon to use when he eat his vegetables and stuff.
Okay.
And he taught Rascal how to eat with that spoon. And it was okay for first few times when Rascal went down, kind of like a canine, and ate his vegetables that way. Because he always had a place at the table for us. And I always took him outside where he can do his business and all that. Because he really couldn't get the gist of how we use the bathroom in the bathroom,
Right.
But he always loved taking baths and showers.
And he liked
so
to
we always
swim,
kept
like
him
you said.
we always kept him clean and all that. Now he had an earthy kind of dog smell,
Okay.
but he didn't smell like rotted blood and all that like these Bigfoot do.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of Bigfoot, next time we talk, we won't get into it tonight because we won't have enough time, and I don't want to stop mid something.
Yeah.
Next time we talk, we'll talk about the information that you shared with me about the Bigfoot, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'll also give you the information on what I know about Goatman.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're about up on that time now. I don't want to run too deep and then, stop midway. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we end this? And then, like I said, when me and you end, we'll get together tonight, figure out when we're going to do the next one.
Okay.
And that way we can, you can share all of the information that you weren't able to share prior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what I want to share with everybody out there, it's like this. My experience was very, very rare and very, very beautiful. Now I'm asking everybody, please be careful when you're out in the woods or even going to the LBL, which is the land between the lakes. That's in Kentucky and Tennessee both. Please be careful of our national parks. Please. And do not approach any of these cryptids. That especially includes Dogman. Please stay away from them. Stay away from them. If you see one and it sees you from a distance, please back away. Back away calmly. Don't do your best and don't try to show fear. Because Dogman can feel your fear. They can feel your emotions. And yes, many of them can read your mind.
Okay.
So I'm asking for everybody, please be careful. Please.
Yeah.
Because even when I had Rascal, I had to take care, and even he had to take care. Because when we were out there, yes, we were out there. Here's the thing. We had to be careful. We really did. Because yes, as kids and stuff, we love to have fun in the woods and everything else, but we had to be careful. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
I mean, it's like this, everybody. They live out there in the woods. We don't. We live in towns. We live in cities. We live in a controlled environment. They do not. When you get out there in the woods, it's no longer a controlled environment. Wild is wild. Nature is nature. Period. The end. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean to everybody. Really, I'm not.
Right.
I'm just stating the differences, and we've all got to be careful.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Well, it has been really a good evening, I think. I'm really glad that you reached out to me, and I'm looking forward to the next couple of shows we've got.
Yes,
going
please.
On. That way, like I said, you can get this information out. You've been working on things, and just so people know, and people are probably going to hear the rattling of your paper in the background. Yeah. You wrote a book about your life with Rascal.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what, you're using kind of that as a template for this. It's not going to be the whole book. But you wanted to make sure that you got the information out that was the right way. And I appreciate it. I really do. So. Yeah. But do me a favor, Robert. Don't hang up. I want to talk to you for a little bit after. Yeah. It was a pleasure having you on, and I'm looking forward. Oh,
I love being on here, and I'm looking forward to the next ones.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna end this, and I'll talk to you in a few more seconds. All right. All right. So once again, Robert Sharp is at our live streams, and if you do have any questions, he is there. He will answer your questions. He's a very nice gentleman. I do appreciate his support, and I value his friendship. So I hope that if you do communicate with him, you treat him with respect, like we all deserve. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is treated with the respect that we deserve. Stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those who love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. And until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.